Admiral Joan Park stared at the holographic display in horror. The footage showed the complete obliteration of Novaterra, humanity's most prosperous outer colony. Billions of lives snuffed out in a single day. "Play the message again," he commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. The alien commander appeared on screen. Tall, six-limbed, with iridescent scales, humans are deemed too dangerous to expand further. This culling was merciful. "Accept your place." The representatives of the Earth Defense Council sat in stunned silence. Finally, General Kim spoke. "We need someone who understands what we're facing. Someone with nothing left to lose." All eyes turned to the woman who had just entered the chamber. Admiral Hannah Lee stood rigidly at attention, her face a mask of controlled grief. Her entire family had been on Novaterra. "Admiral Lee," the council president said, "Earth needs you to lead our response." Her voice was steel. "I accept." The chamber emptied slowly. Admiral Lee remained, her eyes fixed on the paused image of the alien commander. She didn't move when Admiral Park approached her. "Hannah, I'm sorry about Jun and the children," Park said softly. She didn't blink. 3 colonies, 3 billion lives, and they call it mercy. Park had known Hannah for 20 years. They had trained together, fought together. He had been best man at her wedding. Now he barely recognized the woman standing before him. "The Sherkall have contacted us again," Park said. "They want an official surrender by the end of the week." Hannah finally turned to him. "And what does the council plan to do?" "They're divided. Some want to fight back immediately. Others think we should pretend to surrender while we build our strength." "And you, old friend, what do you think?" Park sighed. "I think we're outmatched. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. They wiped out Novaterra, Proxima, and New Seoul without losing a single ship." Hannah walked to the window overlooking the Earth Defense Headquarters. The sprawling complex in Seoul had tripled in size over the last decade as humanity expanded to the stars. Now it felt small and vulnerable. "Show me everything we know about them," she said. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of information. The Sherkall were a coalition of 7 species that dominated this arm of the galaxy. They had been watching humans for decades. Their attack wasn't random. It was calculated to cripple human expansion while leaving Earth itself intact. Lieutenant Ba entered with fresh coffee at hour 13. "Admiral, there's something you should see." He pulled up a new file on the screen. It showed a small Sherkall scout ship that had been captured 3 years ago near Jupiter. Earth military had kept it secret, studying its technology. "We've been reverse engineering their propulsion system," Ba explained. "We think we understand how it works." Hannah leaned forward. "Can we build it?" "With time, yes. But there's more." Ba looked nervous. The ship's database contained information about the Sherkall. They've done this before. Identified threatening species and culled their colonies 5 times in the last century. And those species, all accepted their place, all stopped expanding. All eventually declined or were absorbed into the Sherkall. Hannah's eyes hardened. "We are not going to accept our place, Lieutenant." The emergency council convened again the next morning. Hannah stood before them with a plan. "The Sherkall expect us to surrender or fight foolishly," she explained. "We will do neither. We will appear to accept their terms while secretly preparing our response." President Yang looked skeptical. What kind of response could possibly work against their technology? "One they won't expect," Hannah replied. "They think they understand humans. They believe we're predictable, that we'll either lash out immediately or submit completely. We'll show them how wrong they are." Her plan was audacious. Earth would pretend to accept the Sherkall's demands. Meanwhile, a massive secret military buildup would begin in the hidden reaches of the solar system. "We need 3 years, Hannah said. 3 years to build a fleet unlike anything humanity has ever created." Defense Minister Sun objected immediately. 3 years. The public will never accept waiting that long for vengeance. They will if they understand what's at stake. Hannah countered. Not just vengeance, survival. The vote was close, but in the end, they agreed. Operation Vengeance would begin immediately. The next day, Earth sent its official response to the Sherkall. They accepted all conditions. Human ships would not venture beyond Mars. No new colonies would be established. Humanity would know its place. The Sherkall commander looked pleased in his response. You have chosen wisely. We will be watching. What they didn't know was that deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, construction had already begun. 6 months later, Hannah visited the secret shipyards for the first time. Engineer Dai showed her the progress. We're building 10 Vengeance-class destroyers simultaneously, he explained. Each one with technology adapted from the Sherkall scout ship, but improved. Improved how? Hannah asked. Their technology relies on a form of quantum manipulation we never considered. Once we understood the basic principles, our scientists found ways to push it further. The Sherkall have been the dominant power for so long, they've stopped innovating. Hannah walked along the construction platform. The skeleton of the first destroyer loomed above them, already larger than any ship humans had built before. Will it be enough? She asked. Day nodded confidently. They won't know what hit them. Back on Earth, the public story was carefully maintained. News programs showed humans humbly accepting their new limited place in the galaxy. Military ships were ostentatiously decommissioned. Leaders made speeches about focusing on Earth rather than the stars. The Sherkall observed all this with satisfaction. Their ambassador, a tall, elegant being named Vextor, reported back to his superiors that the humans were properly cowed. Meanwhile, the best minds from Earth were secretly shuttled to the asteroid belt. Physicist Song developed a new shield technology that could withstand the Sherkall's weapons. Engineer Yoon created a propulsion system faster than anything the aliens possessed. A year passed. Then, too, the Sherkall reduced their patrols near Earth, confident in humanity's submission. Admiral Lee rarely slept. When she did, she dreamed of Novaterra, of her husband Jun teaching at the university, of her daughters playing in the parks under the purple-tinged sky. She channeled her grief into determination. On the 2nd anniversary of the attack, she visited the memorial in Seoul. 3 giant statues represented the lost colonies. Millions gathered to remember. Soon, she whispered to herself, soon they will know what happens when you attack humanity and expect us to bow our heads. In the 3rd year, the fleet neared completion. 20 Vengeance-class destroyers, 50 smaller but deadly attack cruisers, over 100 specialized fighters, all with technology the Sherkall couldn't imagine humans possessing. Admiral Park found Hannah on the observation deck of the flagship, watching as workers applied the final sections of the hull. We're ahead of schedule, he said. The fleet will be ready in 2 months. Hannah nodded. Begin crew training immediately. I want everyone battle-ready when we launch. The crews are already selected. All of them lost someone in the attacks. Good. They'll fight harder. Park hesitated. Hannah, what happens after? If we win this fight, what then? She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the stars beyond the viewport. Then we make sure no species ever again thinks they can determine humanity's place in the galaxy. The day came at last. The fleet of Vengeance gathered at the edge of the solar system, hidden behind Jupiter's magnetic field. 20,000 crew members, all volunteers, all with personal reasons to fight. On the bridge of the flagship Retribution, Admiral Hannah Lee gave the order. All ships, prepare for quantum jump. Our destination is the Sherkall Central Command at Proxima Centauri. She looked at the image of the alien commander one last time, the one who had announced the merciful culling of billions of human lives. They thought humanity wouldn't retaliate, she said quietly. They were wrong. The fleet vanished in a flash of light, jumping toward enemy space. The reckoning had begun. 3 months after the attack, the Sherkall ambassador addressed the United Nations. Your submission pleases us. The culling will not continue if humans remain within their borders. What the Sherkall didn't see was happening in the asteroid belt beyond Jupiter. In massive hidden shipyards, the largest vessels ever constructed by human hands were taking shape. Engineer Ta-1 examined the schematics for the quantum displacement drive. It works in simulation, but we've never built anything like this before. Admiral Lee's voice came from behind him. Then we'll be the first. In orbital facilities around Saturn, weapons developer Minji Kang calibrated the gravitational lensing of a new weapon system. This will turn their shields against them. Meanwhile, Earth appeared beaten, subdued. The perfect deception. The Sherkall ambassador Vextor strode confidently through the United Nations building in New York. His 6 limbs moved with fluid grace as human officials bowed their heads respectfully as he passed. He enjoyed these visits to Earth. The fear in the human's eyes fed his sense of superiority. In the Grand Assembly Hall, world leaders gathered to hear his address. Vextor's iridescent scales shimmered under the lights as he took the central podium. The High Council is pleased with humanity's wise decision to accept its proper place, he announced, his translator converting his clicking speech into human language. Our observation posts report full compliance with our terms. This is good. From her seat in the back row, Admiral Hannah Lee kept her face carefully blank. Next to her, General Kim whispered, "He's enjoying this too much. Let him enjoy it while he can," Hannah replied quietly. After the address, Vextor approached her directly. His upper limbs spread in what his species considered a friendly gesture. "Admiral Lee, I understand you lost family in the unfortunate but necessary culling. I trust you have found peace with this reality." Hannah bowed slightly. "Your wisdom is beyond question, Ambassador. Humanity has much to learn from the Sherkall." Vextor seemed pleased by her response. He didn't notice the cold hatred in her eyes. That evening, under cover of darkness, Hannah boarded a shuttle disguised as a maintenance vessel. Its true destination was hidden from all tracking systems. 12 hours later, she arrived at Ceres base, the heart of humanity's secret shipbuilding operation. The massive asteroid had been hollowed out and converted into the largest construction facility in human history. Chief Engineer Ta-1 met her at the docking bay. He looked tired but excited. "Admiral, we've made progress on the quantum drive. Come see." They walked through tunnels bustling with activity. Thousands of engineers, scientists, and construction workers lived inside Ceres now, all sworn to absolute secrecy. Their families thought they were working on Mars or the Moon. They entered a vast chamber where the skeleton of an enormous ship hung in the microgravity. "The Vengeance," Ta-1 said proudly. "Our flagship, twice the size of anything we've built before, with 10 times the firepower." Hannah stared up at the massive frame. "How long until it's ready?" 8 months for this one. We're building 5 others simultaneously in the other construction base." Ta-1 led her to his laboratory where a complex machine sat on a testing platform. "This is the prototype quantum displacement drive, based on the Sherkall technology, but we've made improvements. You've tested it. In simulation only. The principles are sound, but..." He hesitated. "But what?" "We've never built anything like this before. The energies involved are beyond anything humans have harnessed. If it works, our ships will be able to appear anywhere in Sherkall space without warning. If it fails..." He didn't finish the sentence. Hannah placed her hand on the machine. "Then we'll be the first to make it work. Failure is not an option." From Ceres, Hannah traveled to the rings of Saturn, where another secret facility had been built. Here, Dr. Minji Kang was developing weapons systems unlike anything humanity had created before. The Sherkall rely on gravitational field manipulation for their shields, Dr. Kang explained as they observed a test firing. "We've found a way to reverse the polarity." On the testing range, a small prototype fired at a shield modeled after Sherkall technology. Instead of being stopped, the energy beam curved around the shield and hit the target from behind. "It will turn their shields against them," Minji said with satisfaction. "Their own protection will become their weakness." Hannah nodded approvingly. How soon can we install these on the fleet? We're manufacturing them now. They'll be ready when the ships are. Back on Earth, the deception continued. The Sherkall maintained observation posts in orbit around Mars, monitoring human activity. They saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see, a species that had accepted its defeat. Old military ships were visibly decommissioned. Space exploration budgets were publicly cut. News channels broadcast stories about humanity's new focus on internal development rather than expansion. President Yang gave a somber address on the anniversary of the attack. "We have learned valuable lessons about our place in the galactic community," he said, his words carefully crafted to please Sherkall observers. "Earth will grow stronger by looking inward, not outward." Meanwhile, the asteroid mining industry suddenly boomed. Hundreds of new mining ships ventured into the belt between Mars and Jupiter, all of them carrying secret cargo and personnel to the hidden shipyards. 6 months into the project, Admiral Park met with Hannah in the secure underground command center beneath Seoul. "The Sherkall are reducing their patrols," he reported. "They believe we're fully subdued." Hannah smiled for the first time in months. "Good. That gives us more freedom to move resources." "There's something else," Park added. "Our intelligence team decrypted more of the database from that scout ship. We found something interesting about the Sherkall coalition." He showed her the reports. The 7 species that made up the Sherkall weren't equal partners. 6 of them had once been independent races that had been culled like humanity, then gradually absorbed into the coalition as junior members. "They'd been doing this for centuries," Park said. "Find a promising species, attack their colonies, force them to stop expanding, then slowly take them over." "Not this time," Hannah said firmly. "Humanity won't be joining their coalition." As the first year passed, the work continued in secret. The construction of the Vengeance fleet progressed faster than expected. The quantum drives were successfully tested on unmanned probes. The weapon systems proved even more effective than hoped. On Earth, life returned to a semblance of normality. The pain of the lost colonies remained, but it was channeled into determination rather than despair. Every human who knew about Operation Vengeance understood what was at stake, not just revenge, but the very future of humanity. In his luxury quarters in the Sherkall embassy, Ambassador Vextor composed his reports to the High Council. "The humans continue to show appropriate submission," he wrote. "Their military capabilities are declining as expected. I recommend reducing our observation force by half." He had no idea that the small vibrations he occasionally felt were from massive cargo ships passing through Earth's atmosphere, hidden by new stealth technology, carrying essential components for the fleet being built beyond Jupiter. 18 months after the attack, Admiral Lee called a secret meeting of all project leaders. They gathered in a secure facility on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. "We are ahead of schedule," she announced. "The Vengeance fleet will be ready in another year, not 2 as originally planned." Engineer Ta One reported on the ship's progress. Dr. Minji Kang detailed the weapon systems. Admiral Park outlined the training of the crews, conducted in secret facilities throughout the outer solar system. "When we strike," Hannah told them, "we will hit them so hard and so fast that they won't have time to respond." The Sherkall believe they understand humanity. They think they've seen everything we're capable of. They're wrong. As the meeting concluded, she looked at each of them in turn. "What we're building isn't just a fleet. It's humanity's declaration that we will never accept the limits others try to place on us." The Sherkall thought we would submit or fight foolishly. Instead, we've been patient. We've been smart. And when the time comes, we'll show them exactly what happens when you underestimate human determination. That night, as the others slept, Hannah stood alone on an observation deck, looking out at the rings of Saturn. Somewhere out there, beyond the range of Sherkall sensors, the ships that would carry humanity's vengeance were taking form. Soon, she whispered to the memory of her lost family. "Soon they'll learn what happens when you awaken humanity's wrath. Captain Jin Quan of the Sherkall Border Patrol received the alert. Unusual energy signatures detected in Sector 7. Before he could report to his superiors, space itself seemed to tear open. Hundreds of massive ships materialized, each larger than any human vessel previously documented. From the flagship Vengeance, Admiral Lee broadcast a single message: "You mistook patience for weakness." The Sherkall defense fleet was obliterated in minutes. On the command deck, Admiral Lee turned to her XO, Commander Suk. "Send the Second Fleet to their military base at Proxima Centauri." Across Sherkall space, panic spread. Their leadership had assured them humans were primitive, easily controlled. Now, the most powerful armada the galaxy had ever seen was methodically dismantling their defenses. Captain Jin Quan had served in the Sherkall border fleet for 20 cycles. He had seen many strange things in the emptiness of space, but nothing like this. His patrol ship was monitoring the outer edge of Sherkall territory, a routine assignment that was usually quiet. "Captain, our sensors are picking up unusual energy readings in Sector 7, reported his science officer. Jin Quan moved to the main viewing screen. "Show me." The display showed empty space, but the energy readings were spiking in patterns he had never seen before. He was about to order a closer inspection when space itself seemed to tear open before his eyes. The fabric of reality split, creating what looked like hundreds of glowing moons in the darkness. Through each tear emerged something impossible, warships of a design Jin Quan had never seen, bearing the symbol of Earth. "Alert High Command," Jin Quan shouted. "Human vessels have entered our space." His communications officer frantically sent the message, but it was already too late. The human ships were not just present, they were massive. The lead vessel dwarfed the largest Sherkall battleship by at least 3 times. Jin Quan had barely processed this fact when his tactical officer cried out, "They're charging weapons." A single message broadcast across all Sherkall frequencies: "You mistook patience for weakness." The voice was cold, determined, and unmistakably human. Jin Quan had just enough time to order evasive maneuvers before the first energy beams struck his patrol fleet. His ship rocked violently as the vessel next to his exploded into fragments. "Return fire," he ordered. The Sherkall ships launched their most powerful weapons, the same weapons that had easily destroyed 3 human colony worlds. This time, the energy beams simply curved around the human ships, somehow redirected by their shields, and struck back at the Sherkall vessels. "Impossible," whispered Jin Quan as he watched his fleet being torn apart by their own weapons. On the bridge of the flagship Vengeance, Admiral Hannah Lee stood calmly as the battle unfolded on the main view screen. After 3 years of preparation, the moment of reckoning had arrived. "Enemy vessels at 90% destruction," reported Lieutenant Dai from the tactical station. "Their weapons are ineffective against our shields." Lee nodded. As expected, the quantum displacement drive had worked perfectly. The entire fleet of Vengeance had appeared directly in the heart of Sherkall territory without warning. The gravitational shield inverters developed by Dr. Minji Kang were turning the aliens' weapons against them. Commander Suk, her executive officer, approached with a datapad. "Admiral, the border fleet has been neutralized. No survivors." "Good," Lee said. She felt no remorse. The Sherkall had shown no mercy to the human colonies. "Prepare the Second Fleet for jump to Proxima Centauri. Their main military base is there." "Yes, Admiral," Suk replied. "The quantum drives are recharging now. We'll be ready to jump in 10 minutes. Lee turned to Communications Officer Han. "Broadcast to all human ships. Phase 1 complete. Prepare for Phase 2. Across the bridge, the crew worked with focused determination. Many had lost family in the colony attacks. This was not just a military operation. It was personal for everyone involved. In the Grand Council chamber on the Sherkall homeworld, panic had replaced the usual ordered calm. High Commander Vextor, the military leader who had ordered the attack on the human colonies, stared in disbelief at the reports coming in. "This is impossible," he hissed, his scales darkening with stress. The humans were contained. They had accepted their place. Ambassador Vextor, recently recalled from Earth, cowered before his superior. They deceived us. Their submission was a lie. How? Demanded Vextor. How did they build such a fleet without our knowledge? How did they develop technology that surpasses our own? No one had answers. The Sherkall had grown complacent in their dominance. For centuries, they had encountered no species that could challenge them. Their strategy had always worked. Identify potentially threatening races, destroy their outer colonies as a show of force, then watch them either accept subordinate status or destroy themselves trying to fight back. The humans had done neither. They had pretended to submit while secretly preparing a response more powerful than anything the Sherkall had imagined possible. Deploy the home defense fleet, ordered Vextor. All available ships to Proxima Centauri. We must stop them there. As the orders went out, more alarming reports arrived. Human ships had been spotted near 6 other key Sherkall installations. Somehow, they were everywhere at once. Back on the Vengeance, Admiral Lee received an incoming transmission. "It's from the Sherkall High Command," said Officer Han. "They're requesting to open negotiations." Lee's expression didn't change. No response. They had their chance to negotiate 3 years ago. The quantum drives finished recharging. With another tear in space, the fleet of Vengeance disappeared, only to reappear moments later in orbit around Proxima Centauri. Once a human colony world, now a Sherkall military base. Captain Min of the 2nd Fleet reported in. "Admiral, we have surrounded the planet. Their defense grid is active." "Begin the attack," Lee ordered. "Target military installations only." The battle for Proxima Centauri was even more one-sided than the border engagement. The Sherkall defenders watched in horror as their weapon fire curved back upon them, destroying their own defense platforms. Human ships moved with impossible speed, appearing and disappearing as their quantum drives allowed them to jump short distances within the battle zone. Commander Suk monitored the battle from her station. "Admiral, Sherkall reinforcements are arriving." Lee nodded. "Let them come. The more ships they commit, the fewer they'll have to defend their homeworld." The reinforcements fared no better than the defenders. Within an hour, the Sherkall military presence at Proxima Centauri had been completely eliminated. "Send teams to the surface," Lee ordered. "I want any information they have about their other military installations." As human troops landed on Proxima Centauri, news of the devastating defeats spread throughout Sherkall space. The 6 other species that made up the coalition began to question their allegiance. For centuries, they had been junior partners to the dominant Sherkall, having once been culled themselves. Now, they watched as humans did what none of them had managed: fight back effectively. On the Sherkall homeworld, riots broke out as the truth became known. The ruling council had hidden the extent of the human counterattack, but could not contain the information as refugees from outlying systems arrived with tales of the unstoppable human fleet. In his private chambers, High Commander Vextor received a direct transmission from Admiral Lee. "You attacked us without provocation," Lee said, her face filling his screen. "You killed billions of our people and expected us to accept it. You were wrong. Humans do not forget. We do not forgive, and we are coming for you next." The transmission ended, leaving Vextor staring at his own reflection in the dark screen. 3 days after the initial attack, the fleet of Vengeance had destroyed 80% of the Sherkall military capability. Human ships appeared and disappeared across their territory, striking key installations before the defenders could react. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Lee studied the star map showing their progress. Commander Suk approached with the latest reports. "We've secured control of all former human colony worlds," Suk reported. "Teams are already beginning reconstruction on Novaterra." Lee nodded. "And the Sherkall homeworld?" "Their defense fleet is gathering. It's their last major military force." Lee looked at the blinking light on the map that represented the Sherkall home system. "Prepare all fleets for final jump. It's time to end this. As the quantum drives charged for what would be the decisive battle, Lee touched the small locket she wore around her neck. Inside was a picture of her family, lost in the attack on Novaterra. "We're almost done," she whispered to them. "They will never harm another human again." The fleet of vengeance disappeared from view, ready to deliver the final blow to an empire that had fatally underestimated humanity's resolve. "Admiral, we have their capital world surrounded," reported Lieutenant Da. "Shall we commence bombardment?" Admiral Lee studied the planet below. Billions of civilians who had no part in the decision to attack human colonies. No, target military installations only. Precision strikes. The Sherkall Supreme Commander watched in disbelief as human ships destroyed their defenses while leaving civilian centers untouched. They could annihilate us completely, he realized. Yet they choose not to. On the Vengeance, Commander Suk confronted Lee. "They showed no mercy to our people. Why show mercy to theirs?" Lee's response was quiet but firm. "Because if we become like them, what was the point of all this?" The Battle of Proxima Centauri ended with the Sherkall military in ruins, but their civilian population intact. A powerful message had been sent. The fleet of Vengeance emerged from quantum space directly above Sherkall Prime, the homeworld of the species that had ordered the destruction of 3 human colonies. 500 human warships surrounded the planet, their weapons systems fully charged. On the bridge of the flagship Vengeance, Admiral Hannah Lee stood before the main view screen. The blue-green planet below was home to over 8 billion Sherkall civilians. Their last remaining defense fleet formed a protective ring around the world, a final line that would not hold for more than minutes against the human armada. Lieutenant Dez's voice broke the silence. "Admiral, we have their capital world surrounded. Shall we commence bombardment?" Lee studied the tactical display. The positions of military bases, defense platforms, and government buildings were highlighted in red. Civilian population centers glowed in blue. So many innocent lives, just as there had been on Novaterra. "No," she said finally. "Target military installations only. Precision strikes." Commander Suk stepped closer, keeping her voice low. "Admiral, are you certain? We have the power to end their civilization, just as they try to end ours." Lee turned to face her second-in-command. "We're not here to commit genocide, Commander. We're here to ensure they can never threaten humanity again." "They showed no mercy to our people," Suk argued, her voice tight with emotion. "Why show mercy to theirs?" Lee's response was quiet but firm. "Because if we become like them, what was the point of all this? We didn't build this fleet just for revenge. We built it to secure humanity's future." She turned back to the bridge crew. "Begin precision strikes. Military targets only." The human fleet opened fire. Advanced targeting systems developed in the secret shipyards allowed for incredible accuracy. Defense platforms exploded. Military bases were reduced to rubble. Government buildings housing the War Ministry collapsed. But true to Lee's orders, civilian areas remained untouched. In the underground command bunker beneath the Sherkall capital city, Supreme Commander Vextor watched the destruction of his military might with growing horror. His 6 limbs trembled as each new report came in. "All orbital defenses destroyed," reported a junior officer. "Planetary shield generators offline. Military headquarters hit. War fleet at 70% losses and falling." "Why are they not targeting the cities?" asked Vextor. "They have us at their mercy." The tactical display showed human ships deliberately avoiding civilian targets, even as they systematically eliminated every shred of Sherkall military power. "They could annihilate us completely," he realized aloud. "Yet they choose not to." An aide approached with a communication device. "Supreme Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. It's addressed to you personally." Vextor took the device. Admiral Lee's face appeared on the small screen. "Supreme Commander," she said, her voice calm but cold. "Your military capabilities are being eliminated as we speak. You have one opportunity to surrender unconditionally. or you will destroy our cities next?" Vextor asked. "No," Lee replied. "Unlike you, we don't target civilians, but we will remove your entire government and install a new one if necessary. The choice is yours." The transmission ended. Vextor looked around at his advisors, all showing signs of extreme stress in the darkening of their scales. "They're offering terms," said one. "Better than we offered them." Vextor knew he had no choice. The humans had achieved what no species had managed in centuries: complete military superiority over the Sherkall. "Send our surrender," he ordered. Back on the Vengeance, Admiral Lee received the Sherkall message. "They've surrendered," she told her officers. "Commander Sook, prepare a landing party. We'll dictate our terms in person." As preparations were made, Lee retreated to her private quarters. She opened a small compartment and removed a holographic projector. When activated, it displayed an image of her family on Novaterra, her husband and 2 daughters, all smiling against the backdrop of the colony's distinctive purple sky. "All dead now," a soft chime announced a visitor. Commander Sook entered when invited. "Landing teams are ready, Admiral," she reported. "But I must ask again, are we doing the right thing? The crew expects more. Justice for what they did to us." Lee placed the hologram down. "What is justice, Commander? Killing their civilians? Their children? Would that bring back our dead?" "No," admitted Sook, "but it would ensure they never threaten us again." "So will dismantling their military and changing their government," Lee countered. "We're not here to become what we hate." 2 hours later, Admiral Lee led a contingent of human officers into the Grand Hall of the Sherkall government complex. Supreme Commander Vextor and the remaining leadership waited, their postures showing submission. "Here are our terms," Lee announced. 1. Complete demilitarization of all Sherkall forces. 2. Removal of the current government. 3. Reparations to be paid to Earth for the rebuilding of our destroyed colonies. 4. Release of all subjugated species within your territory. Vextor's translator relayed her words. "And if we refuse?" "There is no refusal," Lee said simply. "This is not a negotiation. These are the consequences of your actions." As Lee spoke, reports came in from across former Sherkall space. The 6 other species that had been culled and then absorbed into the coalition were rising up, inspired by humanity's victory. Centuries of oppression were ending in days. Lieutenant Day approached Lee with an urgent message. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from Proxima Centauri. A Sherkall dreadnought that was hiding in the system's outer reaches is preparing to fire on the civilian settlement we're rebuilding." Lee turned to Vextor. "Order that ship to stand down immediately." The Supreme Commander sent the command, but the response was negative. "They refuse," he said. "It's Admiral Vextor. He was the one who led the original attack on your colonies. He says he would rather die than submit to humans." "Then he'll get his wish," Lee said coldly. She activated her communicator. "Captain Min, the dreadnought near Proxima is hostile. Take it out." Within minutes, the report came back. The Second Fleet had intercepted and destroyed the Sherkall dreadnought before it could fire on the human settlement. "That was the last significant Sherkall warship," reported Da. "Their military capability is now effectively 0. Lee nodded, then addressed the Sherkall leaders again. "Let that be the final casualty of this war. Your choice now is simple. Accept a new place in the galaxy as equals, not conquerors, or face extinction. Not from us. We won't destroy you, but from your own inability to adapt." As Lee spoke, images from across human space appeared on screens around the hall. The rebuilding of Novaterra had already begun. The ruins of New Seoul were being cleared. On Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. Commander Sook watched her admiral closely. She had expected to see satisfaction, or even joy in Lee's face at this moment of triumph. Instead, she saw only a deep weariness. Was it worth it? Sook asked quietly as they prepared to return to the ship. All the work, the secrecy, the waiting. Lee looked back at the Sherkall leaders, now signing the formal surrender documents. Ask me again in 10 years, when our colonies are rebuilt and the galaxy knows that humanity stands for both strength and mercy. As they walked back to the shuttle, Lee paused to look up at the alien sky. My husband used to say that the true measure of a civilization isn't how it treats its friends, but how it treats its defeated enemies. And you think he would approve of our choice today? Asked Sook. I know he would, Lee replied. That's why we fought. Not just to survive, but to deserve to survive. The next day, as the fleet of Vengeance prepared to return to Earth, Admiral Lee sent one final message to all ships. 3 years ago, the Sherkall thought they understood humanity. They thought we would submit or destroy ourselves trying to fight back. They were wrong. We showed them patience isn't weakness. Mercy isn't surrender. And humanity's place in the stars is wherever we choose to go. As the message concluded, the mighty fleet vanished into quantum space, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by the revelation of human potential and human restraint. 1 year later, Admiral Lee stood in the new Galactic Concordat headquarters, built on the reconstructed surface of Novaterra. Representatives from 12 species gathered to sign the treaty. The Sherkall, now under new leadership, were present as well, their once mighty empire reduced to a single star system. The reparations will continue for 50 years, said Diplomat June, and their military will remain under supervision for a century. Lee nodded, watching as children played in the memorial garden outside. Some were human, others belonged to species that had been oppressed by the Sherkall. Her aide, Ensign Ho, approached with a report. The last Vengeance-class ship has been decommissioned. Admiral. Not all of them, Lee corrected. One remains in orbit. A reminder. As the sun set over the new capital, Lee thought about the message humanity had sent to the galaxy. We prefer peace, but never mistake our restraint for weakness. The fleet of Vengeance had served its purpose. Humanity's place in the stars was secure. The purple-tinged sky of Novaterra cast a gentle light over the newly rebuilt city of New Hope, where ruins had stood just 1 year ago. Gleaming towers now reached toward the clouds. The scars of destruction were healing, but not forgotten. Admiral Hannah Lee stood at the large window of the Galactic Concordat headquarters, watching the final preparations for the signing ceremony. Her dress uniform felt strange after months of wearing battle gear. The medals on her chest caught the light, honors for a victory she had never wanted to achieve. Admiral, they're ready for you, said her aide, Ensign Ho. Lee nodded and turned from the window. The great hall beyond was filled with representatives from 12 different species. Some looked almost human. Others were wildly different. Crystalline beings, methane brothers in special suits, even a race of sentient plant creatures. All had one thing in common. They had once lived under Sherkall control. As Lee entered, the assembly rose in respect. She walked slowly to the central platform where Earth's President Yang waited alongside the leaders of the other worlds. Today marks a new beginning, President Yang announced as Lee took her place. Not just for humanity, but for all sentient beings who wish to live in peace. Lee's gaze moved to the Sherkall delegation. Their new leader, Vextor, looked nothing like the arrogant conquerors who had ordered the destruction of human colonies. His scales were dull, his posture humble. The Sherkall had learned the hardest possible lesson about underestimating other species. Diplomat Jun, Earth's chief negotiator, stepped forward with the treaty document. The terms are final, he stated. The reparations will continue for 50 years. The Sherkall military will remain under supervision for a century, and all former subject worlds are recognized as fully independent. Vextor signed without hesitation. One by one, the other leaders added their signatures or equivalent marks. Last came President Yang, representing Earth. As the ceremony concluded, Lee stepped outside onto the balcony. From this vantage point, she could see the memorial garden below. Children played among statues representing the billions lost in the attack. human children with their distinctive laughter, tall, willowy children from Alpha Centauri, even a few young Sherkall, their scales still bright with youth. They play together as if they were never enemies, said a voice behind her. Lee turned to see Commander Sook, now General Sook since her promotion. Children have no natural enemies, Lee replied. They have to be taught to hate. Sook joined her at the railing. Many thought you would take the presidency after the war. You're the most popular person in human space. Lee shook her head. I'm a soldier, not a politician. My job was to win the war. Building the peace is for others. Ensign Ho approached with a data pad. Admiral, I have the final report on the fleet decommissioning. The last Vengeance-class ship has been converted to a science vessel. Not all of them, Lee corrected. One remains in orbit. A reminder. Ho looked confused. I don't understand. The reports show all ships have been repurposed. All except the Vengeance itself, Lee clarified. It remains as it was, fully armed and operational. The Galactic Concordat approved this exception. Understanding dawned on Ho's face. The flagship that had led humanity's retribution would remain as a silent sentinel, orbiting Novaterra, a visible reminder to anyone who might contemplate attacking humans again. Later that evening, a reception was held in the Great Hall. Representatives from all worlds mingled, forming new bonds and alliances. Lee moved through the crowd, accepting thanks and congratulations with quiet dignity. Admiral Lee, called a familiar voice. She turned to see Ta-1, the engineer who had developed the quantum displacement drive. I wanted to show you something. He led her to a window overlooking the spaceport. A new ship was taking shape there, unlike any built before. This is the Explorer, Ta-1 explained proudly. The first of our new fleet. Built for discovery, not war. Lee studied the sleek vessel. It's beautiful. It uses a modified version of the quantum drive. Ta-1 continued. It can travel farther than any ship before it. We're planning to explore beyond the known galaxy. A worthy mission, Lee said. Better than the one we had to undertake. As the night progressed, Lee found herself speaking with Vextor, the new Sherkall leader. My people have much to atone for, he said simply. We forgot that true strength comes from creation, not destruction. A lesson humans have had to learn many times in our history, Lee replied. Let us hope both our species remember it now. Vextor's translator conveyed his next words carefully. There is something you should know, Admiral. When your fleet surrounded our homeworld, many of us expected extinction. Your restraint was unexpected. It has changed how we view humans, changed how we view ourselves. Lee nodded. That was the intent. Vengeance alone solves nothing. Justice with mercy creates something new. As the reception ended, Lee walked alone through the memorial garden. The night air of Novaterra carried the scent of alien flowers planted to honor the dead. She stopped at a particular statue, a human family. The faces were generic, representing all who had died. But in her mind, Lee saw her husband and daughters. We did it, she whispered to them. We secured our place among the stars, not through fear, but through strength tempered with wisdom. A soft beeping from her communicator interrupted her thoughts. Admiral, came the voice of the Vengeance's captain. We've detected unusual activity at the edge of the system. Unknown ships approaching. Lee tensed, then relaxed as the captain continued. They've identified themselves as traders from beyond the former Sherkall territories. They're requesting permission to enter the system and establish diplomatic relations. New contact, Lee murmured. New opportunities. She gave the order to welcome the visitors according to Concordat protocols. The next morning, Admiral Lee met with President Yang and the Concordat leadership. Plans were being made for the future, exploration missions, cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation between formerly isolated species. I've decided to accept your offer, Lee told the president. I'll lead the diplomatic mission to the far reaches. It's time for me to build rather than fight. President Yang nodded in understanding. The fleet of vengeance has served its purpose. Now we need ambassadors of peace. As Lee left the meeting, she paused at the great window overlooking the rebuilt city. In the distance, barely visible in the daylight, the shape of the Vengeance hung in orbit, a silent guardian. Ensign Ho approached with her itinerary. "Your shuttle leaves in 2 hours, Admiral. The Explorer is ready for its maiden voyage." Lee took one last look at Novaterra, at the world that had been destroyed and rebuilt, at the headquarters of a new galactic order based on mutual respect rather than dominance. "Humanity has earned its place in the stars," she said quietly. "Not because we're stronger or smarter, but because when the moment came, we chose to be better than our enemies." As the shuttle lifted off later that day, carrying her toward the waiting Explorer, Lee watched Novaterra recede below her. Children still played in the memorial garden, their laughter a victory more profound than any fleet could win. The fleet of vengeance had fulfilled its purpose. Now it was time for the ships of discovery, of connection, of peace. Humanity had shown the galaxy its strength. Now it would show its wisdom.